Hello, my wonderful pen friends. Welcome back to another episode of Currently Inked. And we've got a bunch of questions for today. This is a new shirt for me, so I apologize. I'm looking at my little monitor here, making sure, and I'm getting weird, funky moire patterns, or don't even remember how that word is pronounced. M-O-I-R-E, moire. So I apologize in advance if my shirt looks weird on your screen. This is probably not the best design for videoing, and I'm going to change it immediately after I'm done recording this episode. So let's go ahead and dive in. And nothing in the mailbag this week. Like I said, I haven't been buying a lot of pens, so I don't have a lot to show or talk about. So I'm going to go ahead and start the questions. This first question comes from Julia in Texas, who says, I want a flex nib pen. Can you suggest a good starter? No, I can't. So in terms of a starter fountain pen, starter flex pen, there's really only two options on the market, and neither one of them I would really super highly recommend, because I don't think they give you an accurate indication of what a flex writing experience is like. If you just want to play with flex, your options are something from Noodlers or something from Fountain Pen Revolution. Those are pretty much your two options. You can get a steel flex nib from those two, or a dip pen. You can get a dip pen with, a steel nib like that. It's not a fountain pen necessarily, but it would give you that experience, like a Zebra G nib or something along those lines. And these are not pens that I would say you're going to want to use for a long time or that will last you forever. They're just a very, very inexpensive way to experience kind of what flex writing is like. In terms of if you want a flex writing experience that is more indicative of what flex writing is actually going to be like, you have to move into the vintage space, or you have to pay a lot of money. And I would, for a starter on a decent flex pen, I would recommend going vintage. You can get some decent flex nibs, vintage flex nibs, for under $150 or so. They're going to be on very small pens. The pens themselves might be kind of beat up, but you can find them. The problem with recommending that is there is not one brand or nib that I can recommend, because vintage nibs are varied. You're going to end up with at that price point with kind of a third tier manufacturer. So they're probably manufacturers I've never even heard of before. I don't know what kind of life that nib has led previously. So it's really hard for me to recommend a starter flex pen, because for modern pens, there really is not one. The closest to vintage flex I have found, and I did a video about it just a couple of videos ago, was the fpnibs.com semi-flex nib. You buy the nib itself, and then you put it into any pen that accepts a number 6 Yovo nib unit. And that's what I use. I don't know that I would consider that a starter experience, though, because the nibs themselves are $125, $150, something like that. So the nib itself is going to be more expensive than a lot of vintage pens with a nib already installed. If you're not in a place with a decent pen show, it can be trickier. If you can make it to the Dallas show in November, that might be a really good opportunity for you to pick up an inexpensive flex pen there. But aside from that, it's kind of a crapshoot. There's really no great online resource for ordering vintage pens with flex nibs. There just isn't. It's one of those things that there's a huge gap in the community, in the online community, and something where I think someone with a little bit of vision and technical know-how and experience in the pen world could make a killing by building an online store for swapping vintage pens. So in any case, I wish I could be more help, but unfortunately, I don't love the steel flex nibs. I don't find them to be particularly easy to use, and they require so much fiddling and futzing that I've never really been able to get a great experience out of them. And vintage flex nibs are just so inconveniently variable that it's really hard to recommend this is the one you should go for. So good luck. You'll have to let me know what one you end up with. So, long-time watcher of the pen habit, Ritzert from the Netherlands asks, I was wondering about the following dilemma, also because I'm not sure for myself, which you'd prefer. Finding on eBay a surprisingly good bargain, for example, a specialty sailor nib on a Maquier pen for $150, or buying a very unique pen for slightly too much money, placing yourself out of any competition. In other words, is your classic pen LB5 enthusiasm, which is beyond my horizon this lifetime, really a matter of connoisseurship or of snobism? Well, I don't think that you will ever get me to admit that I'm a snob. Yeah, so the question's a little one-sided. I hate trolling eBay looking for deals. I don't find the deal hunting experience fun. That is entirely a personal preference thing. I know some people who love it. They love going to shows and digging through bins trying to find that diamond in the rough. In fact, I would argue that a great number of the people who attend pen shows in particular are people like that. They like to haggle. They like to try to get a bargain. That is not me. That is not who I am as a person, and it never has been. If I see something I like, I am willing to pay a little extra to get it. Because the problem with a lot of that bargain hunting and deal finding is that it takes so much time. You run the risk of getting something that isn't what you think it is. And my time to me has a lot of value because I keep myself very busy. And so, digging through the bargain bin or the clearance rack at TJ Maxx or Ross, it probably stores you don't have where you are. They're like the factory outlets. It's where retailers dump all the clothes that didn't sell the previous, season. Digging through those bins to find the one good thing at a discount, that's not what I enjoy. I enjoy finding the things I like and just getting them. And I am very, very fortunate that I am able to do that. Is it snobbery? Maybe. I think I would classify it as a difference in priorities. And again, I'm fortunate that I am in a situation where I'm able to do that. I don't have to worry about putting food on my table or sending my kids to college. All of those things are covered by my wonderful job, and I'm very, very fortunate. And I totally recognize that. But you asked what my personal preference is, and that's it. I would prefer to pay a little extra for something I want and that I know that I'm going to like, rather than hunting for some random find where I save a big chunk of money. So that's my preference. This next question comes from John. It's a good one. And John is in San Francisco. John asks, what are your thoughts on what makes a pen a flagship pen for a brand? Case in point, I recently had a discussion with a friend as to why I felt the Pilot Custom 845 in Urushi Black is what I consider to be their flagship pen, because it's the best they offer in mass production. It's not a limited edition and or offered in limited quantities. Your thoughts on what makes a flagship pen for a brand? So John, I don't know if that friend you had the discussion with was me, but I had the exact same discussion with someone when I said I considered the Pilot Custom 823 to be Pilot's flagship brand. And someone, I don't remember who, we had a bunch of comments going back and forth about saying, no, it's not. The 845 is the flagship brand. And I said, well, in the United States it's not, because the 845 is not easily available here. And they said, that doesn't matter. The flagship brand is the 845. And I said, well, I don't agree with you. And we kind of left it at the agree to disagree phase. So I don't know if that was you, but interesting question. Glad you asked. So out of curiosity, I looked up the definition of flagship because I just wanted to make sure I wasn't kind of off in the ether here. So a couple definitions that show up here on this website. The ship that carries the commander of a fleet or subdivision of a fleet and flies the commander's flag. And then number 2, the finest, largest, or most important one of a series, network, or chain. For example, the company's flagship store. So it really depends on, in my looking at these two definitions, flagship really depends on context and personal preference. I don't think anyone would argue that the Montblanc 149 is Montblanc's flagship fountain pen. It is the largest, the most expensive of their regular production line pens. Again, no limited edition, no special edition. It is also the most popular of their regular production line fountain pens. And that's where I think things start to fall apart with me on the pilot example that you talk about. Because when you're talking about a ship or a flagship, just because the commander is on the ship doesn't make it the best ship or the biggest ship or the most expensive ship. It makes it the ship that the flag is being flown from. And the Pilot Custom 845, the Urushi version of the pen, is a lovely pen, but it is nowhere near as popular or as important to the Pilot Custom line as the 823. It is the nicest, so by that definition, yes, it is. You could be considered the flagship pen. I still stand by my belief that, at least according to at least within the United States, the 823 is Pilot's sorry, I'm stumbling over my words today. The 823 is Pilot's flagship pen, at least here in the US. Just because something is the most expensive or the nicest of a production line does not necessarily mean it is the flagship item. Often it does, not always, but that second definition, the finest, largest, or most important one of a series, network, or chain, that's where I think there's a lot of wiggle room in the definition. I consider the 823 to be far and away the most important pen in the in Pilot's fountain pen lineup. Far and away the most important. Is it the largest or most expensive or the nicest? No. That would be the 845, assuming you discount all the special and limited edition stuff. So that's kind of my thought. I don't know that I don't think most pen companies have a flagship pen. I think Sailor does. Sailor King of Pen would be their flagship pen in my book. I'm not sure I could classify a platinum flagship. I mean, ideally it would probably be the platinum president, I'm guessing, but I don't know. It's certainly not advertised. Montblanc's got the 149. I couldn't name a Visconti flagship because they don't really have one that is the most important. Probably the closest would be the Homo sapiens in that case. Just trying to think of some other. Franklin Christoph, I don't know that I could name a flagship. Maybe the Model 19, although it's hard to say. The concept of flagship is so nebulous and so abstract, it would be hard to classify for most cases. So that's my take. Maggie from Illinois asks, Staples has a wheat straw paper. It's called Step Forward paper. Is that what your notebooks are made from? I make my own traveler's notebooks and thought that paper might be more fountain pen friendly. That is what I made my very first batch of notebooks from. The original, ones with kind of the manila cover and the big what's the word I'm looking for? Pen Habit. Jeez, I need more coffee. The Pen Habit logo on the front. I made those out of the standard available Step Forward paper from Staples. I mean, it didn't come from Staples, but it was the exact same paper you can get at Staples. I also keep a ream of that paper in my office over here to my left. That's what I print all the packing slips on when I ship orders. It's pretty affordable. It is extremely fountain pen friendly, far more so than the lightweight would indicate. All of the subsequent versions of my notebooks, both the second and the third run of notebooks, were made of paper from the company Step Forward, but they used to have a commercial line of paper that came in much larger sheets, different weights, slightly different formulations, also very fountain pen friendly. Those have been discontinued. So the paper that is in my notebooks is from the same brand, It is different paper though. It's not exactly the same as what you get from those 8.5 by 11 sheets. As far as I can tell, the consumer version of the Step Forward paper is still being manufactured. The commercial version is not. I don't know if that's changed. I haven't printed any notebooks up for almost a year now, so that situation may have changed, but I did go ahead and order a big honking crate of that Step Forward paper because I like it so much. It's nice and thin, doesn't add a lot of weight, and I use it all the time. So yes, if you want to make your own traveler's notebooks, that is a really, really good option to go for. All right, this next question comes from Sam in Canada. I know it's Canada, but I like to say Canada, who says, would you please show a swatch of a couple of your favorite Montblanc inks? I'm having a tough time picking a color. I'm mostly interested in blues, greens, browns, and purples. Okay, so I'll show you. I've got most of the Montblanc inks from the last several years. I've stopped buying new inks, so I haven't had any new ones for about a year. But I can show you both the production line and some of the special edition ones. So this is Montblanc Royal Blue. I do not like this ink. I think it is bland and undersaturated. It is not a terribly popular ink, but if you want a blue, that's kind of your option. It's either that or the Midnight Blue, and the Midnight Blue is so bland and dark, it's almost black. I don't care for either one of their blues very much. This is their Toffee Brown. Toffee Brown is gorgeous. I really, really like it. It's probably my first or second favorite brown. It's kind of tied up there with Colors of the Earth, Grand Canyon from Caran d'Ache, which is out of production. So this is my favorite production brown. That's a pure brown. Montblanc Lavender Purple is, as I call it, the blueberry pie filling of fountain pen inks. It is a beautiful color, rich. This is going to give you a solid indication of what it looks like with writing. I find it to be very well behaved. I have heard other people say they've had problems with it, but I personally have not experienced them. Montblanc Irish Green is, again, probably, I would say, the most popular color of all of Montblanc's production line inks. It's a beautiful ink, again, very well behaved, got some interesting shading sometimes depending on the pen, and nice, rich, saturated color. I really, really like this. This is one I like to use a lot in the springtime when the brown and grays of winter are starting to fade and we're starting to see life again. So this is my springtime ink. If you can find it, get yourself a bottle of this Montblanc Honoré de Balzac Dandy Turquoise. It is it is my favorite turquoise, period. It was a limited time special edition of 2013, I think. Very difficult to find. I have a bottle and a half of it left, and I love using it. This is one where, even though I love this ink and it's a special edition, I'm not hesitant to use it because I love it so much. And then finally, you didn't ask about reds, but this is the Montblanc Corn Poppy Red, which is a newer, probably the newest one in their production line. And if you like a true red, this one is really quite a lovely red. Has some nice, like, kind of halo effect around it in the saturated areas. So hopefully that helps. If I had to pick one ink to get, I would say go with the Irish Green or the Lavender Purple. Those are my two favorites, followed very closely by Toffee Brown. So those are the three production line inks that I think everyone should have because I love them. All right, well, I figure maybe it's time, we're 20 minutes or so into this video, maybe I should actually do a currently inked. And the currently inked for today is my purple, my Amethyst, Tairiku Amethyst, Classic Pens LB5, made by Sailor for Classic Pens, now Lambrou Pens. This is number 22 of 50. Love this color. Love the depth to it. You don't see a lot of purple pens of this color. They're usually a lot more on the lavender side. This is very rich and deep and, grape juicy. So I really like this pen a lot. This one, I think I have a medium nib in here, but let me just verify. Yeah, that's a medium nib. It's a very large 21K nib and writes like an absolute dream. And I have this one inked up with Akkerman number 5 Shocking Blue, probably my favorite dark blue. I use this a lot. I find myself, when I want a dark blue, I find myself turning to this a lot. It's got some nice sheening to it, a little bit of shading. It's nice and rich and saturated, but it's well behaved. A lot of these super saturated inks that have come out on the market lately, I'm thinking of Organic Studios, Walden Pond, or Nitrogen. Some of the Robert Oster super saturated ones, like Soda Pop or something like that. They smear. They never really dry. This is a very saturated ink that sheens but actually dries. So I like that one quite a bit. I don't need like uber sheen. I like to still be able to tell what the underlying color of the ink is. And some of these new super sheening inks sheen so heavily you can't tell what the color of the ink is. In fact, I know that Lisa Van Ness was telling me that she's had some customers who have said, they buy a bottle of Nitrogen or Walden Pond. Nitrogen's kind of it's very similar actually in color to this shocking blue, but it sheens so heavily it looks red. Same thing with the teal color of Walden Pond. And she's had customers who get it home, start writing with it and go, well, it's supposed to be red. She's like, no, it's actually teal with a red sheen, and you're using it in a fine nib. It's that sometimes it sheens so heavily you can't tell what the original color is. I don't particularly care for that much sheen. That looks like an oil spill to me. Anyway, let's do one more question to wrap up this episode. And this question comes from Mary in Illinois, who says, do you have a guilty pleasure pen and or ink? My friends have dubbed one of my favorite combinations the lava lamp pen with radioactive ink, which is a clear TWSBI Eco with Noodler's Blue Ghost. I know it's weird, but I just love it so much. So for those who don't know, Noodler's Blue Ghost is the ink that only shows up under ultraviolet light. I don't have any trick inks or any, I don't know what the word I'm looking for is, any fancy inks like that. I'd say probably my favorite guilty pleasure ink is J. Urban 1670 Emerald of Chivor. I'm not huge on shimmer inks with glitter. Actually, I'm very desperately anti-glitter. I hate glitter with the deep and fiery passion of 1,000 suns. I don't mind it so much in inks, but glitter, like I open all of my Christmas cards outside because I do not want glitter in my house. And just so you know, if any of you are thinking about glitter bombing me, I open all of my mail at the post office. So if you think you're going to be glitter bombing my house, you're not. You're just going to be glitter bombing the poor folks at the Postal Service. So, no. In any case, so I'd say that's probably my guilty pleasure ink. It's a lot of fun to use. It's very pretty. I love the red sheen. Speaking of sheen, I like the gold sparkle with the red sheen. I think it is probably the prettiest of all of the shimmer inks in existence. And it's one that I forget to go back to as often as I would because I don't feel comfortable putting it in a lot of my pens. I don't put glitter inks in any pen that I cannot disassemble to clean. And I don't have a ton of pens like that anymore. I do have a few, and there's one in particular I'm thinking, I really ought to ink that up with Emerald of Chivor because I haven't used that in a while, and I love that ink. So in any case, hopefully that'll let you know. In terms of guilty pleasure pens, no, I don't really have any. I mean, all of my pens are guilty pleasures, let's be honest. So there you go. All right, well, per the earlier question about step forward paper and notebooks, let me remind you that you can buy notebooks, the Inky Fingers notebooks from penhabit.com. They are available in travelers and pocket sizes, and I have lined, blank, currently inked bullet planner, and not bullet journal, but bullet planner, slight difference, and am I missing one? Oh, and dot grid in both of those colors, or in both of those sizes. So head over there if you want to support the Pen Habit by buying these notebooks and try that really, really nice wheat straw paper out. So thank you so much for watching. We'll see you here soon on another episode of Currently Inked. Bye.